Welcome to the Belfast Podcast. I'm your host, Luke Byler, and I wanted to tell you guys about something that happened, something that I get an opportunity to be a part of, and how I need your help. So, as many of you know, this podcast started as a C.S. Lewis podcast, as a reflection on his works, and hopefully in the future we'll be able to do much more of that. We are planning on bringing a lot of that in the next year or so, but we want to get this gospel project done, and we are very excited about continuing that. Obviously, the Lewis influence gives his name to this podcast, the Belfast Podcast, as he grew up and was born in Belfast, Ireland. Saying he grew up there is actually not technically correct. Anyway, we won't get into the weeds. But this podcast started majorly from his influence and has influenced much of the work we have done up till now. And it was about a month ago that I found out that I will be able to go on the trip that my school does to Oxford, England every year to study C.S. Lewis in his time and in his place. And I'm very excited to say that I got accepted to go on this trip. Now, what is this trip? What does it consist of? Well, it's a 9-day trip. Spend a day on each end in London, and then 7 days in Oxford. We will stay at a hotel very close to Oxford, the school. We will get to visit Oxford. We will get to visit churches around there. We will get to visit the church that Lewis attended and where he gave his Weight of Glory speech. We will get to visit his home, the Kilns. We will get to see where he lived with his brother Arnie. We will get to have lectures from Lewis scholars. We'll get to see where Lewis is buried. We'll get to visit Magdalen College, as well as Oxford College. And we will get to just spend 7 days being where Lewis lived. We'll get to visit the Eagle and the Child, where the Inklings met. We'll get to do much and more of these things. And I'm very, very excited to be able to be a part of this. Now, there is one hitch here, and it is the fact that the trip itself costs $3,400 for everything I just said. For the tickets to get on the plane, for the speakers to go to these sites, to have tour guides, to have access to all of this, for staying in the hotel, all of those things is $3,400. Now, there's some out-of-pocket stuff that if we go out and we have dinner, I'm expected to pay for that. Fair enough. But the trip itself and participating in the events is $3,400. Now, I was graciously gifted the amount for the first down payment by my parents. That was $750. So, as of now, the trip cost $2,650. I don't have $2,650 to just throw at this trip. I have some money saved up for next semester because I'm going to be able to pay for that out of pocket. But that will flush much of what I have. And that being said, I would love your help with this. If you have loved anything we've done, if you are excited for what we're going to do in the future with more content regarding C.S. Lewis, if you're excited for the gospel project that we are now embarking on, I've made a GoFundMe. I will link it in the description below. I will continue to talk about this. I will continue to link it in the episodes. And if you feel so inclined, if you've been blessed by anything Daniel and I have done, if you've been blessed by anything I've done, or Dimitri and I have done, please consider giving to this to help me be able to go to Oxford. I am ecstatic to be able to study C.S. Lewis, and I would love to be able to go on this trip, and I need your help to do that. And because I don't just want to ask for your money and not give anything in return, I have some plans for what I want to do as a thank you to those who give. One of the things I want to do is interview the professor who teaches the Lewis course at my school and the one that leads the trip. He is one and the same guy. He's been on this trip. This will be his 12th time on the trip. I want to interview him about C.S. Lewis, about the trip, about what he teaches, about why he does this, all those things. And I'm going to make that interview available to anyone who gives $5 or more to this endeavor. And the second thing is, we, as the students on the trip, are going to give a lecture on a book of C.S. Lewis. So I'm going to record my lecture and make that available to anyone who gives $5 or more. Those two items, the interview and the lecture by yours truly, will be available to anyone who gives for this trip. $5 or more is the baseline. There will be some other content I will make that will be just for YouTube, that will get released publicly, that everyone will be able to see as a consequence of the trip, hopefully happening for me. But I do want to give special things to those who give towards this trip, towards my ability to go, as a way to say thank you, and as a way to not just take your money and run with it. And so I want to thank you for listening to this podcast, for finding what we do enjoyable. As I always say, I hope it's fruitful. I hope it's engaging. I hope it challenges you. I hope it helps you. And if you feel any inclination to give back, to help us continue to do this better, this is a great way. I think this trip will benefit me in a number of ways, other than just the 9 days I spend in England. And so, if you would like to give, I will link the GoFundMe here and on every episode we do after this. You can go to the page, you can give a donation, and I'm going to keep track of everyone who gives $5 or more. And then you will get access to that special content. I've been trying to make the website work with the GoFundMe, but I'm not able to do that. And so I'll just keep linking the GoFundMe below. It is linked to I made a separate savings account in my personal accounts, so that everything that is given will go to that, and then I can make sure that everything that's being given is being spent on the trip, as a piece of integrity for myself. And so right now I'm going to splice in a conversation Daniel and I had about this trip, an initial pitch we gave, and you'll get some of his thoughts on how he thinks this can benefit us. And again, I thank everyone for listening, for subscribing, for being a part of what we're doing here. And I just hope that we can continue to grow this and do better things in the future. And this is part of that. So we will see you in the next one. So Dan, do you have any comments to make on that?
Yeah, a few comments. First thing, this is obviously a short run measure of support, right? And this is for Luke, but I think it's not just for Luke to grow and be enriched in his knowledge of C.S. Lewis. It's also so that in the future, whenever Luke and I start to cover C.S. Lewis material more directly, Luke's going to have a far greater understanding of Lewis's context, of Lewis's world, and of Lewis's imagination because of this trip. And so, yes, content will come directly because of this trip, given that the support is raised, that will enrich, hopefully, anyone who's able to watch that content. But taking it a step further, I think this trip is an investment into the future of the channel and everything that we plan on doing in the future with Lewis. And so growing Luke's knowledge base will help, I think, a lot as far as that goes. And I think that's important to note. And the last thing that I will say is Luke and I do seem to be kind of bad at asking for money. And Luke, you can cut this if you want. And so this has been something that we kind of inherently struggle with. I hate it. And it somewhat makes us uncomfortable. But there is, on the other hand, the reality that we do devote a significant amount of time to this, and we are students, and we do have lives outside of this that also need attention. And so the ability to help Luke in this way, I hope will be not just a blessing to Luke, but also a blessing to everyone who gets to hear what it is Luke learns from this trip. And hopefully will be a blessing in the future, as I just addressed with the podcast as a whole. And so we're kind of pushing some waters where Luke and I are both a little uncomfortable, but there is a reality that we do. For quite a long time, we've been giving away our time for free, and we don't have any hesitancies or resistance to that. We both love doing this, but it does need a concrete reality where needs need to be met. And we can only do so much with the time that we have, especially if we're also having to work jobs and other things like that. So I won't get to go on the trip, but please, please, please support Luke in his goal to go on the trip and learn about the context, the life, and the works of C.S. Lewis, because I think it will reap benefits over and above the investment that will be sowed.
Yes, and thank you very much for your support.
Yes.
I guess I'll see you when I get back from England.